Good evening. Here is the world news from BGI TV, Babarbagide Imo TV. I am Morire Rebila Lawal. First are the major headlines. Buhari not in breach of Supreme Court injunctions, Malami. New Naira policy to frustrate Tinubu, Akeredolu. 2023 elections, we will deal with polls interrupters, security agencies warns. And the next one, Ogun residents chase Abiodun at campaign. And on sports, on the 20 AFCON, we will fight hard to beat Nigeria, Mozambique coach. Now the news in detail. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, has said President Muhammad Buhari did not breach the Supreme Court injunction as regards the Naira redesign and currency swap issue. Malami stated that as far as the rule of law is concerned, there are many options available. The minister made the declaration today during the 67th ministerial press briefing at the State House. A 7-member panel of the Supreme Court had ordered the suspension of the Naira swap deadlines and directed the continued use of the old note, following a request by 3 state governors. However, in the broadcast, the president only restored the validity of the old 200 Naira note, maintaining that the old 500 Naira, 1000 Naira notes had ceased to be valid, a declaration that stirred various reactions across the country. In his professor, Mike Ozekume said Buhari has no powers to override the Supreme Court of Nigeria. In his latest statement regarding the Naira redesign and Naira swap crisis, which has left many Nigerians confused, the senior advocate of Nigeria, San, says Buhari's national broadcast on the issue was more like a military tyrant's contemplation. He added that Buhari's imperious order was a frontal call to chaos, anarchy, and national upheaval. Going to the next story from state level, the Oyo State Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, has said the Naira redesign and swap policy was targeted at truncating Saturday's presidential election and National Assembly elections. He added that the policy was also targeted at the All Progressive Congress presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu, to ensure he lost the election. The governor stated these at the state broadcast aired on electronic media outfits in the state on Thursday morning, barely 48 hours to the election. According to him, the cash policy swap of the APC-led government and the alleged artificial scarcity of fuel are both lethal injections deliberately administered to demarcate the APC government, creates an uncontrollable crisis in the nation, and finally frustrate the 2023 general elections. He said, the goal is to truncate the election and deny the country the service of a true patriot and endowed visionary with a proven record of character, knowledge, leadership, and performance. It is also an attempt to abuse the principle of the rational presidency by denying a section of this country its legitimate rights, thereby fueling ethnic disaffection and creating a grave constitutional crisis in the country. Moving on to the next story. Ahead of Saturday's presidential and National Assembly elections, security agencies including the Armed Forces, Police, and the Department of State Services, among others, are vowed to deal with anyone who attempts to subvert the general elections. At a joint news conference in Abuja, the Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tukur Gusau, said security agencies are prepared to use strong force on anyone caught trying to subvert the general election. He said security agencies are determined to ensure the conduct of peaceful general elections. The Force Public Relations Officer, CSP Olumuyiwa Adejobi, added that a restriction of movement from midnight on Friday until after the election on Saturday will be strictly enforced, as he warns no voters to stay away from the polling units. Also speaking, the spokesperson of the DSS, Peter Afunaya, further added that the service remains committed to protecting the nation's democracy, as he lists the quantity of arms and ammunition recovered from bandits and political talks ahead of the elections. Gusau stated that elections will be held in all parts of the country. He urged Nigerians to discontinue threats from non-state actors, as the southeast remains part of Nigeria where elections will be held. Moving on to the next story. Tension built up in Bdùct on Tuesday when the resident defied all persuasions from the Oyo State Governor over the scarcity of New Naira North. The residents of the state who gathered themselves to listen to the governor as he was speaking on his motorcade cramped by some politicians, including the former Speaker of House of Representatives, Dimeji Bankole, suddenly lost their patience and started calling the governor unprintable names. Information gathered that the incident happened in Omida and Okelewo, where the governor received hostile reception from the people during his Bdùct South campaign tour. Information observed from a video clip which has gone viral that every effort by governor to explain the situation failed as the angry residents, majorly market women, interrupted his speech and asked him to leave. The incident happened 2 days after the Shagamu riot, where about 19 banks were destroyed. Information observed that the residents were not pleased with the governor over their plight, hence they hurled at him unprintable words. Bdùct was seen persuading the angry residents as the caravan-like vehicle was escaping from the tension-soaked scene. Bdùct, despite the abusive words hurling on him over the Naira scarcity, did not get angry, rather he continues begging them. The governor at a point almost got annoyed as he told the residents that he was not the cause of their predicament. The governor spoke in Yoruba saying, "Please, I'm sorry, I'm not a CBN, just don't be angry." From the Ogun State story, we go to the southeast. The indigenous people of Biafra has once again insisted that those calling for no election or sit-at-home order in the southeast during the forthcoming elections do not represent IPOB and are not IPOB family members. This was contained in a statement by the group's media and publicity secretary, Emma Powerful, on Thursday. Powerful emphasized that IPOB has not called for any sit-at-home order during the duration of the election and therefore distanced itself from any purported order in the southeast during the election. The statement read in part, IPOB, under the command and leadership of our leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who is illegally detained in DSS solitary confinement, once more unequivocally and publicly declare our lack of interest in the Nigeria fraudulent selection process called elections coming up in this month of February 2023. We have stated for the upbeat time that we have nothing to do with the Nigeria elections and have neither called for a boycott or do we have the intention to call for an election boycott during these coming elections. Those calling for no election and sit-at-home order during the election period are simply paid agents whose sole motive is to discredit our self-determination movement by attempting to paint it as an anti-democratic force. Going on to the next story. The Finnish police has arrested Biafra separatist leader Simon Ekpa over his threat of no election in Nigeria. Ekpa has threatened that any person in the southeast part of Nigeria that tries to participate or vote in the 2023 general elections scheduled to hold on Saturday, February 25th will be ruthlessly dealt with. The separatist leader has been fingered as being the arrowhead of several killings by unknown gunmen, a dangerous armed militia responsible for the death of several people and even public officials in the southeast. Ekpa, a self-acclaimed disciple of Nnamdi Kanu, the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, rose to prominence in July 2021 after he was announced as the lead broadcaster of Radio Biafra. The Finland-based activist was appointed to replace Kanu following the rearrest of the IPOB leader by the federal government of Nigeria. After some weeks, IPOB announced Ekpa's disengagement, citing his refusal to sign the rules of engagement of Radio Biafra. Ekpa was picked up from his apartment in Lahti region of Finland by officers of the Finnish Central Criminal Police on Thursday morning. Moving on to the next story. Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, have stormed the Ujioba Forest Reserve in Asian West LGA, Edo State, where they destroyed 7,286 kilograms of warehouse skunk and 5 hectares of its plantation. Spokesman of the agency, Femi Babafemi, will disclose these in a statement on Thursday, said a special operation carried out on Wednesday, 22nd February, followed credible intelligence that some cartels warehoused hundreds of jumbo bags of the illicit substance inside the thick forest of the reserve for distribution to some states ahead of general elections. Babafemi said the operation could, however, not go on immediately until after several roadblocks set up by armed guards of the drug lord were cleared by the superior firepower of strike force officers of the agencies in the gun duel. The statement reads, after the initial resistance, 2 rifles, spent cartridges of shotguns and an empty shell of AK-47 rifle were recovered, while a 24-year-old suspect, Calvary Essien, was arrested. To the next story before the foreign news. Some residents of the Amuro Autonomous Community in Okigwe local government area of Imo State have reportedly fled their houses due to frequent gunmen attacks. Information gathered that there had been widespread panic in the area as a result of the daily report of attacks. The wife of Ugweze, Umu Borogu, the traditional head of the community, was abducted by gunmen on Wednesday. Along with abducting the monarch's wife, the raging gunmen also set fire to the Amuro World Country mansions of the All Progressive Congress and Labour Party chairs. The assailant lit the houses on fire as soon as they arrived at the premises, according to a community source who asked to remain anonymous. Narrating the development, he said, after taking the woman hostage, they destroyed Ifediora Umegoro's home, the head of the Labour Party in the Amuro district. When they struck, the guy and his family were gone. The APC chairman's home in the ward was also completely destroyed. It's getting out of control now. The government ought to step in and help us from incessant attacks. Moving on to the foreign story. U.S. President Joe Biden has called for peaceful and credible 2023 general elections in Nigeria, saying the citizens deserve a chance to do so. Biden made the call on his official handle Thursday, calling on all candidates to respect the election results and back a peaceful transition. U.S. President Joe Biden has called for peaceful and credible 2023 general elections in Nigeria, saying the citizens deserve a chance to do so. All Nigerians deserve a chance to choose their new leader through a free, fair, transparent and peaceful process. As election day nears, I urge the political parties and candidates to live up to their pledge to respect the election results and support a peaceful transition. All Nigerians deserve a chance to do so by electing their own leader through their votes. So the last story of the news is sports. Mozambique head coach Dario Montri says his side will go all out for a win in the final Group A game against the Flying Eagles of Nigeria. Young OS members have picked just 1 point from their opening games. Montero's side held host Egypt to 0-0 draw in their first game. The Mozambicans were thrashed 3-0 by the Senegal on Wednesday night. Montero's charge will have to beat the Flying Eagles of Nigeria in the last group game match in Ismailia to qualify to the knockout stage of the competition. We are now preparing to face Nigeria on Saturday. The match is not easy, but we are holding on to our chance to rise and we will fight for victory. It is now clear, either we win or we return to our country, Montero told journalists at his post-match conference. We performed well in the first half and prevented Senegal from scoring any goal. We also took the initiative to attack and try to score, but we did not take the advantage of the opportunities. The situation was completely different in the second half, and the team could not continue to resist the Senegal attack. We have to admit that the Senegal national team is very strong and we have more time to reach their level. That ends the world news this hour. Before we go, some major headlines. Naira redesign, Buhari not in breach of Supreme Court's injunctions, Malami says. New Naira policy to frustrate Tinubu and Keredolu claims. We're also brought to you as regards 2023 general elections. We will deal with polls interrupters, security agencies warns. And finally, we will fight hard to beat Nigeria at the ongoing Under-20 African Youth Championship in Egypt. Mozambique coach boasts. For more updates on YouTube, our handle is Babagbagede Imo TV. Kindly subscribe and click on the notification bell. Select option all to access our broadcast. On Facebook, Gbagede Imo with Alawiye Adebayo. Please like and follow the page. On Instagram, Gbagede Imo _22. For advert placement of your goods and services, coverage of events and functions, please dial the phone number streaming on your screen for advert placements only. Just a day to the presidential election and other elections, which will determine the life of Nigerians in this hard time. But through your PVC cards, you can make that better change by yourself. Let's go and do the needful. I am Morire Rabila Lawal. Good evening.
Oh, na, na, na. If you want to know what's going on in city, or you want to listen to the latest news and gist, no stress, oh, just tune to BGI TV. BGI TV, you're one in a million.